Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Greetings, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and today on the show, today on episode 47, I talk with Rebecca Lombardo about what it means to be a mental health advocate. We explore what that means and how we can improve our mental health advocacy through education, through listening, through loving, and leading with our hearts, and a whole lot of empathy, that's for sure. Rebecca is a pillar of strength and passion when it comes to advocacy in the mental health space. Go give her a follow at Becca Lombardo on Twitter, and go follow the hashtag KeepTalkingMH. Rebecca is the creator of that hashtag, and it'll make you feel a little less alone if you go follow that hashtag. So, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to say in this intro? I know what I want to say. I want to say that I am, just this past week, although it's in my future, I went to the gastroenterologist. Am I saying that right? I don't know. The gastro doctor, the intestinal doctor, the fart doctor, whatever you want to say. I have tum-tum issues, as some of you know, and it's a constant frustration in my life, and it's a reminder that mind and body are connected for me. But I've had IBS. I have SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You can fast forward through this if this is kind of gross for you or triggering. But I have tummy issues and I have cramping, and it's, years ago I was diagnosed with SIBO, and I started eating cleaner and sort of cut out grains and gluten, and that has helped for the last few years. But lately, I don't know if it's stress, I don't know if it's anxiety. My tummy is I'm just constantly in discomfort, and it's no way to live. And so I'm doing a self-care move. I'm taking action, and I made an appointment with the doctor. And I'll let you know how it goes in, maybe on Instagram at YouMeEmpathy, or Twitter at YouMeEmpathy, or in the next intro of this podcast. It's I'm wondering if you can relate to someone who maybe has anxiety, and how that anxiety may contribute to stomach pains and stuff. That certainly happens. So I'll keep you posted. I'm just you get exhausted. You get tired of going to doctors. You get tired of it. I've been to so many doctors in my life, and treating things like just so many things, and it's like you just get tired. You just want to kind of give up a little bit and say, screw it. I'll just deal with it. And you can do that to a certain extent or for so long, and I'm just kind of fed up. So I'm taking action, making an appointment, and I'll let you know how it goes. Before we get to the episode with Rebecca Lombardo, please go leave You, Me, Empathy a review in iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Google. It helps out the show. It's a free way to support the show, and I would read your review on this intro if you'd like. So please do that. Please, 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 from the bottom of my heart. And also, if you'd like to support the show on an ongoing basis, financially, you can through Patreon. You can support You, Me, Empathy for as little as 25 cents an episode or $1 a month, all the way up to like $4 or $10 a month. And you get various goodies and bonus audio and things like that. So Check that out at patreon.com/YumiEmpathy. Okay, please enjoy this episode 47, on what it means to be a mental health advocate with Rebecca Lombardo. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. Yumi Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today I am thrilled to be exploring mental health advocacy with blogger, hashtag Keep Talking MH creator and wholehearted mental health advocate, Rebecca Lombardo. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, so happy to have you. We are, for the listeners, going to be talking about mental health advocacy today, but as we always do, we're gonna do a little check-in, which is a time for Rebecca and I to just check in with each other emotionally, seeing how our week's been, how our days have been. How are you doing, Rebecca?
You know, if I'm completely honest with you, I've been struggling a little bit. If things haven't been going as smoothly as I'd like, and I'm, having trouble with, just the whole getting out of bed and showering and starting my day. It just seems to drag on every day. But, I can't really complain too much because I've been in such, deeper, darker places than what I am now. I'm actually, I can say I'm grateful for my depression being as moderate, I guess you could say, as it is now. I've been for so long; it's been so much darker. So, I can play it off pretty well, like I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
But I have been struggling a little bit. I lost my father a year ago, and
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And it's been a little bit of a struggle, but I'm getting there. I never give up. I'm always a fighter, so I'll get there.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you're struggling, and my heart goes out to you. It is interesting how we, in our depression, can sometimes, and it seems to be helping you, can sometimes say like, oh, I've had it worse before. This isn't so bad. It's just interesting the things that we do to just get by and how resilient we are as humans.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. What kinds of things do help you in those dark times?
Well, I spend a lot of time with, as much time as I possibly can with my husband. We have cats. And our oldest, Haley, she could have been qualified as a therapy pet.
Aw.
Very, very in tune with what's going on with me. And she knows that if I'm down or if I've got a migraine or whatever the case may be, she does not leave my side. So that's always wonderful. And, I do things like coloring, and I watch a lot of movies. And if my headache isn't too bad, I'll read. I've been trying to improve upon myself this last year, and I'm taking some online courses. Just like mental health advocacy type courses that I have discovered. Yeah. So, when I've got the wherewithal to get into that, I do. And, I spend a lot of time online, and I write like crazy. I mean, I write poetry, I write my blog, I write blogs for other people. So, I've got quite a few things that I can fall back on.
That's good. We need those support systems, and I so relate, and it warms my heart to know that you have a little critter at your side, because I certainly can relate to that. We don't have cats, but we do have a dog, and that dog's been with my partner and I since he was a puppy, and he'll be 12 in October. He's a black lab, and he's just the sweetest guy, and he's always wants to be right at your side, and it just fills you up, Yeah,
it does.
Well, thanks for sharing that with me. I this week, I'll just do a quick check-in. It was my birthday as of this last week, as of this recording. And I had this planned camping trip, and it turned out that my wife couldn't make it. She was going to for various reasons, legitimate reasons, and it kind of put me in a headspace of just I didn't want to go camping, which is a weird space for me because I love camping. But it was I was going to go camping with my mother and her husband, and I went, but it only lasted a day because and it was beautiful up there. I went to Montaña de Oro State Park in San Luis Obispo, California area, and it was really beautiful. But from the outset, my headspace was just not right. I was feeling lonely. I was feeling a lot of self-hatred and kind of that feeling of being unloved. It's so weird how I can trick myself into thinking that no one loves me when there are clear signs, right in front of my face. But still, I convince myself of that. And so I was just feeling lonely and kind of bummed out. But I came home and, it got better, once I sort of got into the sort of swing of things and the weekend and the work day and stuff. So that's where I'm
good.
at. Yeah. Okay,
I love camping too, by the way.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Nice. Is there good camping in your neck of the woods?
I believe that there is. I personally have always gone to Canada.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
To camp. Ever since I was a little kid, my dad was a Cub Scout leader.
Oh, perfect.
And he would let me go on their campouts with him, and they always went to Canada. And unfortunately now, to get to Canada from Michigan, you have to have a passport. So we can't just pick up and go over there anymore. It's a whole rigmarole.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of a bummer. But we do have this really nice tent that I got for a gift from my folks that we haven't broken in yet. And I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to get to that this year.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. It is. I mean, I talk about this a lot on this show, but just being out in nature and sort of being outside of the mayhem of sort of modern culture and technology and stuff is very therapeutic for me. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca, let's get into your story a little bit. I want to. Can you give me a few sort of seminal moments from not necessarily your childhood, but your sort of mental health journey that sort of speak to where you are today and the work you're doing today and your advocacy and your writings? Just a couple of seminal moments in your mental health journey.
Well, sure. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 19, and I kind of struggled all throughout the next 10, 20 years trying to find, a good doctor and the right combination of medication and everything. It was definitely a struggle. And I met my husband, and we were married August 3rd of 2001, which has been, just a huge, huge relief to know that I've got somebody in my corner all the time. He's an amazing, amazing person. And, that's one of the best things that's ever happened to me was marrying him. But,
that's nice.
Yeah. And, I did struggle still all the way in. I'm 45 now, actually. And
Okay.
I struggled. I'm still struggling, so in 2013, I attempted suicide and was hospitalized and then committed by the state of Michigan to this awful, horrible hospital that I received no help whatsoever at it. I just wanted to get out of there. And from that, I started writing a blog, and my blog turned into a book. And the next thing I knew, I was kind of immersed in this mental health community on social media, especially Twitter. And I realized that my book and my blog and everything were they're helping people. And I felt like I had this responsibility to, the people that were looking to me for advice or, what to do next. I felt like I had a responsibility to learn as much about it as I possibly could and to be that advocate that people needed. So that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today.
Yeah, and that's quite a lot of trauma leading to this, and it's a beautiful outcome of such a traumatic journey. Can you walk me through sort of what inspired that sort of call to advocacy? Did you feel a lack of support in your own sort of journey, or your suicide attempt, your bipolar disorder?
I felt a pretty sizable hole in my care and my from my family members. My mom died in 2008. I just mentioned that my father passed, and he was always kind of a stoic guy, sort of, rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine kind of guy,
Sure, yeah. I know the type.
He wasn't cruel, or, he tried to understand, but he didn't really grasp it all. So it was hard for me to go to him to talk about different things. But, I had my husband, and unfortunately I didn't have really any friends or family that I could go to that I felt comfortable going to about, having suicidal ideation and whatnot, because it just scared people away. I lost so many friends after 2013. They just, scattered, and I never heard from them again. And some of them were, more than 20-year-long friendships. So, like I said, I'm grateful for my husband. He's been there constantly, and I would be so lost without him. But there was definitely a gap, this chunk of my life missing, where I had people that thought I was a coward or just was trying to get attention and things like that, and they didn't want to help. They just wanted to criticize.
I'm so sorry. That's...
Yeah.
My heart breaks, and I'm like welling up, because I've experienced that same reaction before in people in my life, and just our culture. And it's so damaging. When I say it all the time, but it needs to be said, when we are experiencing trauma, or when we are struggling as humans, trying to get by, we need people in our lives who will be empathetic, will understand, will be patient with us, will listen actively. And when we come up against that stigma or that fear, a lot of times it comes from fear or ignorance, or sort of a lack of wanting to understand. It's so damaging to the person who's struggling. And I'm just so sorry that you had to experience that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's tough. And It's why, it's why this podcast exists. We need to have these conversations, as you know very well, as someone who writes about this stuff all the time. Like, we need to put the words out there that we're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone in your struggles. You have people, even if there are people close to you who aren't seemingly willing to have that conversation or listen. There are people out there like Rebecca who will listen. And I think that's just an important thing to remember, but it's hard. It's so hard.
Definitely. The mental health community on Twitter is fantastic. And, you can go on there pretty much any time of day. And if you are feeling down or struggling with something, you can almost always find somebody that's willing to talk about it with you. So they're amazing.
They are amazing. I agree. I'm sort of recently experiencing that, and it's quite amazing. It's quite supportive and stunning. Can you, if you're comfortable, can you talk to me a little bit about the nuances or the details around your suicide attempt and the sort of outfall of that, or the recovery after that experience?
Well, when I look back on it and my reasoning behind it, it all seems a little bit silly. Not the act itself or the feelings or emotions that I was experiencing, but the things that led up to it were a little bit silly. I had this position with a multi-level marketing company, and it was going really well until I got into this fight with the people on my team, and it just escalated, and the company was calling me and harassing me. And another thing that led up to it was the day before, my husband had gone to his counselor at the time, and she asked him for my phone number. And this woman, who was a licensed counselor, called me with my husband in her office on the phone to tell me to stop having suicidal ideations because I was upsetting my husband.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is horrifying.
Yeah. And needless to say, I lost it. I lost complete control there. And, I went a couple of days just sort of stewing over it. And you have to remember, in 2008, like I said, my mom had passed. And then 2011, my brother passed on my birthday. And we were kind of struggling financially. That's why I was working these, little jobs that I could try to work. And it was going really well to a point. And then all of a sudden it just all fell apart. And I have a tendency to blame myself when things stop going well. Even if I didn't have that much to do with it, I will blame myself in some way. And really that's what it boiled down to, was that I felt like I was a failure, that I was a burden, that, my husband would be better off not having to deal with me. And so I used to practice self-injury. I have 5 years clean right now, but I don't want to be too graphic with it, but there was some self-injury involved. And then I took a whole bottle of pills that we had just gotten filled, and, kind of sat there and waited for my husband to come home from work, and he dragged me to the emergency room.
That's, I'm particularly struck by, again, your husband's therapist making that call. I mean, that person should not practice practice therapy. That's amazing to me how that happened. Was your husband, like, you said your husband was in the room when that call was made?
Yeah, he was in the room, and I think part of the reason why she did it was because I had been expressing my desire to kill myself for a couple of days. And I think that it was just getting to him, and it was really wearing him down. And I think he was probably in her office in tears, not really knowing what to do next with me. And I just think maybe he anticipated that she was going to say something more supportive or something therapeutic.
Yeah.
And she just reamed me out. So
something human and professional.
Right, exactly.
Right, which is, she did the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How, when you, leading up to it, how did your husband talk to you about it? Did he try to kind of reach out and understand? I'm not trying to, to throw anyone under the bus. I'm just curious about how, like, if there was a dialogue between you and your husband before that.
Regarding suicide?
Yeah.
Yes, we talked about it a lot, and he was always extremely supportive, and really was just trying to let me know that I wasn't a burden, that people still wanted me around, and that he would be lost without me, and just all the right things that a person should say to someone who is considering suicide.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, once I got it in my head, it was hard to get rid of it. So his words kind of fell on deaf ears, even though I remember them today. But at that time, my head was only into suicide. It couldn't be dissuaded. So
yeah. And I think that's a really important point you make, in that, because I've had suicidal ideation myself, and in that place, you really don't hear anything else. You're kind of singularly focused and sort of caught up in that space, which is a valid decision and a valid choice. And I think, anyone thinking that suicide, the thoughts or the act, is selfish or cowardice or all these gross terms that thrown around, you're absolutely incorrect. That is not something that I support. I think it's a decision that is made and one that is incredibly difficult and resonant of so much pain and struggle. And so our hearts should go out to anyone dealing with those experiences. So my heart goes out to you in that.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with you. It's, I did get some of that "you're selfish, you're a coward" kind of stuff from that whole thing. So a lot of people thought I was, because my husband, was updating my Facebook page, telling my friends that I was in the hospital and such and such. And there were people that were saying that we were lying.
Oh, boy.
So, we took a picture of the wall where they have the write-on wipe-off board with
Sure.
like the patient information and all that, and he posted it on Facebook, and we got even more backlash from that. And it was a whole nightmare. I mean, in retrospect, we should have just left everybody else out of it, but I know that he was thinking of family members and things like that we wouldn't be able to get in touch with right away. So
yeah, he was coming from a wholehearted place. He was saying, hey, like, we're experiencing this thing and we'd like people to know, because they may they care and they want to know, but to get that
right.
reaction is just ugly. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough.
Yeah.
So walk me through a little bit of your experience in sort of after the suicide attempt and leading up into sort of your writing and the book that you wrote. Like, talk to me a little bit about, like, your journey there.
Well, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a writer. I remember back in third grade telling people I wanted to be a writer. And I have been struggling for about 20 years with just this long-standing writer's block where my brain just could not function and I couldn't write anything. And, I had that hospital stay. I was in 2 hospitals in 2013, just a standard, hospital up the road. And then they transferred me to this other facility. And when I got out, I was having a lot of nightmares and, flashbacks, and my PTSD was like at an all-time high. And I was trying to figure out what I could do to sort of help me purge some of this negativity from my brain. And I decided to start writing, and it really had no purpose at the beginning other than to, help me sort out what I went through and to hopefully get past it. And as I went on, I would let my husband read it, and he would say, oh, this is really good. And then I'd let a friend or two read it, and they'd say it was really good. And then I thought, well, why don't I go ahead and start this blog? And that was the next step. I started putting everything on this blog, and I was just every day just banging stuff out. I mean, I wrote nonstop for a good year.
Wow. Yeah.
And, other people that read it were like, yeah, you got to make this public because, this is amazing. And so I did. And then I was just overwhelmed with messages and requests from other people in other states and other countries, and just really like, you only took the words right out of my mouth kind of comments. And
so validating.
Very much so. And it was great. It was, and I still to this day, I don't write in my blog as often as I would like, because I've been experiencing some of that writer's block again. Mm-hmm. But as I went on, it occurred to me, well, this might make a good book. Is it possible to turn your blog into a book? And I Googled it, and it was something that people did. So that's what I started working on. I kept writing the blog while I was trying to get the book published. So everything was up to date. Every blog post went right into the book.
Got it.
And it took me some time, and then I finally found a publisher that would help me out with it, and we put it out there, and it's available on Amazon still now, and came out in 2015, and I'm pretty proud of it. There's a lot of people that have told me that it really helped them, and I've gotten some really, really amazing responses, on Amazon from people that, made me feel really good. So I'm pretty proud of it.
That's amazing, and you should be proud. And we'll plug it at the end, but just so the listener knows, the book's title is "It's Not Your Journey."
Yes.
Rebecca, tell me what does that mean? It's not your journey.
What that means is the book is a cautionary tale, basically, and I know that there's a lot of people that have been down the same road that I have and made different decisions that had different outcomes, or that, they have a certain, like, say, borderline personality disorder. I have that. They might have it, and it might manifest itself in a completely different way than what it is for me. That doesn't mean my disease isn't valid. That doesn't mean I don't have it just because I'm different from you. So that's kind of what I wanted to say was, we may cross paths here and there, but this is not your journey. This is mine. And, I look at it, like I said, as a cautionary tale, and I don't want you to follow in my footsteps. Basically, that's where it came from. Interesting.
Well, and then another facet of it, and maybe this is what you're speaking to in part is, this idea that there is a one-size-fits-all sort of situation. I was just having a text exchange with someone, and more or less what came up was like, what is the sort of quote-unquote solution or antidote to depression? And I said, well, there isn't one, really. I mean, there is a myriad of sort of complex nuances, and it's different for everyone. And so in that respect, the it's not your journey side of things is like we can relate to one another and find validation in that and sort of empathy in that, support in that. But the other side of it is we also shouldn't compare ourselves to others, because that can sort of hinder our own growth as well, because things are so different.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to read the book, and I'd love to buy a handful of copies and give them out to listeners. So look out for that, listeners. Let's transition a little bit as we sort of start to kind of wind down here. I want to talk about this idea of mental health advocacy.
Okay.
What does that word mean to you?
What that means to me is, I would have to say, seeking out people that seem to be doing poorly, or you're at one level where you're doing great and things are going smoothly, but you know that there are people that are not in that headspace, and they might need a little bit of a boost. So seeking out people, even if it's just online, that seem to be struggling a little bit, and kind of trying to help them put things into perspective. That's one aspect of it. There's other aspects with, like with writing, the more people you can get to read your work, the hope is that the more people will understand mental health, or mental illness rather. And let me see, what else was I going to say? Idea slipped my mind.
No, I hear what you're saying. It is about, like, one, I reached out on Twitter and at CSUSMA, CSUSSMA2 said, quote, creating opportunities for inclusion, which I thought was a great idea about, around this idea of advocacy and being a mental health advocate.
Right, definitely. And I think educating yourself is really important, because you can go on your experience. That's not a problem. You can use your experience to help others. But I think knowing some of the ins and the outs of traditional advocacy can really be helpful for a person when somebody comes to you and says something that you may not be able to answer the question.
Oh yeah.
I've had that before. I've had people message me or send a message through my website or what have you, and be like, hey, well, what about this? And I've been stuck for an answer. So educating yourself is definitely a great way to practice advocacy. And the other thing is just being heard and doing, I have a hashtag, keep talking MH, and doing things like that so that people can see that there's others out there that have been through what they've been through, and all they have to do is follow this hashtag, and they're going to find a community of people that are willing to help. So there's a lot of facets to it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of, I don't even think I could go into everything, but yeah, really it's just being there for people who, to me, it's being there for people who are not at a good place in their lives.
Yeah, and I would say, one of the main sort of running threads to being a good sort of mental health advocate is leading, like, perhaps courageously or sometimes in a place where it's a little uncomfortable with our hearts. Mm-hmm. Because it does take a sometimes a little step outside our comfort zones to be that mental health advocate to others in, as you're talking about, Rebecca, in the way we maybe educate others a little bit, in the way we maybe inspire others to look at mental illness from an destigmatized perspective, in the way we, sort of create communities, as you're doing in Keep Talking MH. All these things, like, it requires us to kind of really get ourselves out there and lead, strongly with our hearts and empathy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One previous guest of the show, Sherry Heller, she said, in the public sector side, a good, like a mental health advocacy is assist an individual with grappling with a mental illness, navigate through bureaucracy of entitlements, housing, and treatment, which is a huge part of it, and something that I would like to kind of be sort of more clued in on, or just learn more about. Because I know, I have, my brother, for instance, has struggled with that side of the sort of mental illness, public support, like, governmental support sort of side of things that can be improved upon, and I think maybe a part of that is what I'm saying is, like, getting out there and starting petitions or sort of reaching out to our local leaders in our cities, like, to create better mental health support systems and things like that. I think that's a part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What else do we want to say about advocacy? I think that writing, I think what we're saying is just getting our voices out there in whatever way we can with our hearts first. And if we're well-intended and we want to learn and we want to sort of understand mental illness more, I think we can't go wrong there, is the message here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like speaking up for the little guy who doesn't have a voice is, I think, one of the biggest factors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that, they come online and they just read. They never respond or interact with people because they're too afraid or, whatever reason. And I think that's really important, is to be able to sense that those folks are in need of a voice and a leg up, and helping them is a huge part of it as well.
How do we, like, directly help them? I mean, is it in sharing our writing? Is it in sharing our podcast? That type of thing?
Yes. I think everything, from blogs to books to podcasts to, articles in the Huffington Post or, the Mighty, or just any of these things. The more that we talk about it, the closer we're going to get to being stigma-free. And like I said, the more that we talk about it, the more these people that feel like they're alone in the world are going to start to feel much less alone. That hey, that person is, online all the time and writes a blog and wrote a book and is, popular or whatever. Maybe I can get there too. Just kind of situations like that. So
yeah, I love that. Yeah, at Bonbug1 on Twitter said, "Keep talking, keep educating, keep sharing," which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time you reach out and you post a blog post and you say what it's about, you have no idea, how many people are reading it right then, and from where, and what their circumstances are, and you could have made all the difference in the world just from writing down your thoughts. And
it's
you
very powerful.
you could have changed somebody's entire outlook on their life.
Absolutely. And we get sometimes caught up in the numbers, but I think if we can change one person's life, if we can impact just one person's life and then sort of steer them in the right direction, or just have them feel less alone in their mental illness, like, that is worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Is a part of advocacy too, like, not only sort of doing our work in the podcasting and the writing and the blogging and all that, which is, in part sort of like, destigmatizing mental illness, but is another side of it, like, if we see anti-stigma, or if we see sort of mental health stigma or mental illness stigma, online or whatever, that we call it out, or we sort of seek to maybe educate or correct?
I would have to say no, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm all for maybe taking, if suppose it's two people and there's one person that's ignorant to what mental health is, and they have all these horrible things to say, and then there's the other person who is just kind of having to absorb all of it. I think taking that person aside with a private message, if you can, or what have you, and just kind of giving them a little bit more confidence about the whole thing, and just saying, look, that person's not handling it properly. That's not the way everybody feels, that kind of thing.
I see.
Facing off with the person who is possibly a troll, I do not recommend. If they're wrong, and let them be wrong on their own time. Don't bring that into your life. I'll tell you, the last 6 or 7 months of my life have been so much better because I stopped responding to comments, and I don't read comments anymore on stuff that I do. I don't read comments on other people's articles, and get frustrated with them. I just have left all of that off the page. I don't even acknowledge any of it anymore. And because I had gotten to a point literally where I was fearful of going online because of what I was posting and some of the feedback I would get.
Oh, I see.
And so I just stopped completely. And the less you engage with those type of people, the more you'll notice that they're not around. Because I, knock wood, haven't had to deal with anybody like that in months. So I highly recommend not addressing that person, maybe just taking the other person aside and kind of, giving them a pat on the back and saying everything's going to be okay. But as far as addressing the negative person in the conversation, I don't advise that at all.
I think that's good advice, and I think great sort of moment of self-care for yourself. What if it's like a family member or someone, and I know this is like, probably we each have to kind of gauge where that person's coming from and sort of sense their intent and if we can, and that sort of thing, because even family members can be trolls or maybe not willing to listen, and we have to kind of gauge that. But when it is our family members, like, what do you do?
Same situation. I kind of gave up on it.
Yeah.
I have family members that have mental illness, and think they know everything, or I'm wrong about everything. And, it's just not worth it. It's just like you said, it's a kind of a self-care thing where you just have to, not my circus, not my monkeys, and walk away. There's just, to maintain your own sanity, you really just can't get involved in things like that. Say, hey, agree to disagree. Let's talk about something else. If they refuse to talk about something else, just walk away or hang up the phone or whatever you have to do. But, in order to, if you want to maintain that relationship with that person, I would avoid, especially if their views are so toxic, I would avoid the conversation altogether.
Yeah. I think that's very good advice, and I would agree completely. Well, let's before we kind of plug your book and your wonderful stuff, we always wrap up the show mentioning an empathy hero, and I will go first. So this is the part of the show where we mention an empathy hero. An empathy hero is someone in our lives who is just a great person who is embracing empathy in their lives and is just a good example. Could be from our own personal lives, could be from fiction. Since I've been mentioning empathy heroes in each episode, I've started reaching out to my audience. And so this week's episode, I have a empathy hero from Leslie, who is on Instagram at Comrade Wellness, COMRADE Wellness on Instagram. She says, my empathy hero is Maria Harrison, who is on Instagram at Sourcing Our Light. She embodies empathy in a way that truly does make everyone who comes in contact with her, quote, feel felt. She has been there for me, holding space, reflecting back, purely listening without judgment, and asks for nothing in return except the acceptance of the gift of empathy. Thinking about her, the work she sets out to do, and the way she shows up in this world as a mother, partner, sister, friend, and human being makes me feel immense gratitude to bear witness to her unfolding, end quote. So that is just a beautiful empathy hero.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah, mention from Leslie for Maria, and you guys should absolutely follow them on Instagram. Again, Leslie is at Comrade Wellness, and Maria is at Sourcing Our Light. Well, Rebecca, who's your empathy hero this week?
I would have to say my husband.
That was expected. I'm just kidding. Good one.
Yeah,
he seems like a man full of empathy.
He really is, and it's funny because when we first started dating in May, we had tried to date a little bit prior to that, and it didn't work out. Our schedules conflicted, and then May of 2001, we started officially dating, and then we were married August 3rd, 2001. So when we knew, and he had, at the beginning, he had a little bit of growing up to do and a little bit of learning the ropes and everything. But now, if I say anything to him about how I'm feeling, the first thing he says, is there anything I can do to help? Can I make it better? And something like that. And it's really, really, he's just a good, kind person, and everyone that crosses his path likes him. They probably don't like me, but they do really, really like him. And it's heartwarming to watch him take care of people and worry about other people and worry about me and try to make sure that everything I need is taken care of. It's he's an amazing person. We're going to be August 3rd. We'll be married 17 years. So
wow, congratulations!
Thank you.
Well, he sounds amazing, and I'm so happy you have him in your life. As a fellow, someone who has experienced trauma, we need those bright spots of humanity in our lives, and it's the best when they are our partners in life, and so that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so great. Well, Rebecca, let's remind or tell the listeners where they can connect with you on social media, read your blog, buy your book, and again, for the listeners, I'll make sure to link all this stuff in the show notes.
Okay. Well, my book is available on Amazon. So it's available in a few different places, but Amazon is generally the easiest. And like we said before, it's called It's Not Your Journey. I wrote the book, and then after a couple of years, there were some things that weren't really newsworthy anymore at the end, and just really needed to be removed. So there's a second edition that's out and about, and it's got an orange cover. So make sure you purchase one with the orange cover, not the one with the brown cover. And really, just to find me is very simple. If you go to my website, it's www.rebecca, REBECCA, Lombardo, LOMBARDO.com. And there's a page on there that has everything, my blog, all of my social media feeds, and everything that you could possibly need. But I'm mostly on Twitter and Facebook. And if you don't feel like going to the website, Twitter is at Becca Lombardo, BEKA Lombardo.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And again, listeners, all those links are in the show notes. I'll also link a beautiful story that Rebecca shared on The Mighty, which I read this week. And you should read too, listeners. So I'll link that as well. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for being on Yumi Empathy and sharing your story with me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And to you, listeners, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's Yumi Empathy.